Good morning, Joe. Um, I just like to first start out by just thanking you. I heard you're a veteran. I just like to thank you for all your services and how you protect our freedoms here in the United States. And we obviously are going to jump into this debate now. The gender wage gap is an exaggerated lie. That is my premise. I truly believe that the wage gap is an exaggerated lie because women in the United States and Western Europe are the most freest and most liberated in human history. They're not doing as well as men, but I believe that they're doing better. And I hope throughout this debate I can provide some statistics that can convince you of this and further my case. The reason why advocacy groups, according to my opinion, why these women groups and media and all these politicians and Hollywood are dissatisfied and want us to believe that women are marginalized under this patriarchy, this so-called patriarchy, is the fact that they are just dissatisfied with the progress that women have been making over the last couple of decades, and they do not support reality. Reality to them is a myth, and they wish to see a world in which men are constantly being attacked and seen as the devils. And I just start off with that opening statement, and I look forward to hearing how you are going to challenge that this is not a lie.
Well, first of all, there's two claims to be made here. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, he ran away. I don't know. So, can you hear me? Okay, cool. So there's two claims being here. It's exaggerated and a lie. Those are non-synonymous terms. So let's talk about first it being an exaggeration. Is the wage gap, the gender wage gap, an exaggeration? Well, I need to know what your stats are before I can make a statement on whether it's exaggerated or not. And then there's the statement that it's a lie. Well, that just off the bat doesn't seem to be self evident. Why would it be a constant debate if it was simply a lie? I think it would have been nipped in the bud by now. I mean, there's been this gender wage gap has been talked about since 1972, I would guess. And it's something that's constantly come up. So I just find the idea that it's either a lie or that it's an exaggeration, both to be a bit underwhelming. But what I will do and what I will try to get across as the point is that one, I don't think the gender wage gap is necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I'm actually a proponent for the gender wage gap. I do think men should make more than women, specifically based on IQ data, the bell curve, and things of that nature. And secondly, I think that I find it odd that this is used by the left wing to attack the right wing, and that it's a socio biological function within capitalism itself that states that men will most likely make more money. Um, the current times and climates may have changed, but I don't think that our socio-biological structure as a male and female species has changed much, especially in the short amount of time that this has become a serious issue. So really, before I run my negative case, I just want to make it clear that those two are there. Now, in my last little bit before I continue, I'd like to thank you for thanking me for my service. It's hard for veterans to say anything other than that. Thank you for thanking me. You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you for taking this debate up at 2 o'clock at night. I'm over here working on a lot of homework, and I really have nothing else better to do with my life, and I needed a break from programming. So I figured I'd just jump on. I'm going to waste every 3 minute time. No, I'm not.
All right, no problem at all, man. I mean, you guys are up late in the morning is defending our freedom, so this is the least I can do, man. No problem at all. So I'm gonna go to the statistics, being the fact that you mentioned the statistics, and for the other points you made two contention points. You talked about to explain the exaggerated lie and the bell curve. And I want to challenge your bell curve on men have higher IQs. I disagree with that proponent, but I'm going to save it for last because I really want to get to the statistic because I feel that was your first point. So the wage gap is misleading because okay, now the 23 cents. Now this is a common statistics that's given by feminist groups. It says 23 cents pay gap is simply a difference between the average earning of all men and women. But they don't take into account that this is the current wage gap when you factor in men and women that work full time. Um, and so the when they just toss the statistic at you, they don't give you the variables. They don't take account of differences of occupation of males and females, positions of male and females, education completed by male and females, job tenure, the hours worked per week. And so this is how it becomes misleading, and so this how it becomes exaggerated, because the particulars are never addressed, but it's just tossed out there and say, hey, look, men like women make 70 cents on the dollar for every dollar that the male makes. And case studies, like let's for example of some case studies I was able to research before this debate. Doctors on the surface, it may look like doctors that are males, and physicians, no, women doctors and women physicians are victims of wage discrimination, but like because they appear to earn less for the same work as the male doctors and physicians. But what's beneath the surface? Here's what's beneath the surface. Women are more likely than men in these fields to enter low-paying specialties. Also, women are go into lower paying specialties like pediatrics and family medicine than higher paying cardiology and anesthesiology where men are. Women are also more likely to work part time. Even women that work full time put in about 7% fewer hours than men. Women physicians are also more likely to take longer leave of absences than men, usually to start a family. Men don't take long leave of absences that often to start a family. So my basic contention point and like conclusion is that the gap vanishes once all these accounts for all these relevant factors are taken into account. And I'm just going to pass it to you.
So you laid out the statistic, right? The 23 cents less than men make, right? That's true. That is true. Here's the thing. You're saying that it doesn't take in a lot of relevant factors and things of that nature, but that does not destroy it from being true. Sure, in aggregate, we both agree that there is a gender pay gap. Per job, there might not be, maybe, no. But as a general rule of thumb, there is a pay gap between men and women. There's also a disparity in men and women between purchasing power. Women control the majority of purchasing power in the United States without making as much as men do. But that doesn't mean that men don't spend money. That doesn't mean that men don't make bigger purchases. What that means is that the overall purchasing power parity between the two sexes is in favor of women. Men make more, women spend more. That's just the nature of the beast in reality. And when you do close the gaps for education time and those things, it's still 1 to 2% off ahead for male, but that's typically skewed. But the issue here becomes that it's not a myth. It exists. Now, why it exists and then the function of it existing are completely irrelevant to the idea that it does exist. So I want you to answer, why would it be a myth, or why is it an exaggeration, either or, if we know that it does exist, but that there are reasons for it existing?
No, I mean, okay, that was one of my arguments. I have another argument that is more blunt in regards to showing how it doesn't exist. Now, I mentioned that, but now if you were to factor these things in, if women did the same things that men did, there would not be that much of a gender gap, because that particular like 70 cents on the dollar, it really reduces down to 6.6%. And I look forward to really getting to the bits and pieces of that. You talked about, like, I'm gonna look to continue point all the way at the end. I just want to continue to give my points, and you can do whatever style you want. You can contend them as I bring them up if that's your style, but I choose to address content all your points at the end. Now, there's an okay, so my personal experience is that in colleges, I've encountered a lot of women who have accepted the wage gap propaganda. Now, my second argument that contends this is that um is that hold on, give me a second. There's the second contention point was that give me a sec. Okay. Okay. My this is a lot logic. Okay. Isn't it common sense proof that if the male female gap was true, that employers would just fire all the males and keep all the female workers? Because if you want to reduce costs, that would be the logical thing to do. So that is not that is not existent. You see in the workplace, you see male and females with about equal representation or more females than males. But if that was really the case, you would see less, like you'd literally see all females working in particular in the industries, and they would just get rid of all the males just to reduce costs. And I'm going to pass it off to you real fast for you to contend that point.
So again, let's break this down. I'm talking about an aggregate statistic. When we break it down, sure, there are differences. Now, when it comes to that second contention, one, you have to look at what what jobs men are doing that they're not getting paid as much as women, vice versa, and things of this nature, right? So, as a construction owner, let's say I can hire 10 women at $8 an hour, right? That's $80 an hour. Or I can hire 3 men at $20 an hour. That's $60 an hour. The 3 men will outwork the 8 women with respect to extremely heavy lifting. So even if there is a wage gap there, specifically because the level of production. So many people have this idea that there's a labor value or there's a labor theory of value. But that's not true. It's a production. So wages are equal to your marginal rate of production. If a man outproduces a woman, no matter what the cost is to the company, the man will be picked up. If the female outproduces the male, then the female will get picked up. It just so happens to be that a lot of the jobs that I guess you could say were used to be manufacturing these things, men are typically more productive than women. But if you go to nursing, women are typically more productive than men because they tend to work harder on those areas. So it's really hard to say that if women were paid less, then why wouldn't we just hire them? Because it's not necessarily about wages. That's a lost argument. That you have to agree with the labor theory of value here, and I do not. It's wage is equal to your marginal rate of production. And if that marginal rate of production with your wage is higher than the wage if that marginal rate of production is higher with respect to that wage than it is vice versa, then I'm going to pay you more since you produce more. So that's why you wouldn't see that happening. And secondly, you wouldn't see it happening because, well, what jobs are we specifically talking about? You can't just say that all of these jobs that aren't being filled by men are going to be filled by women who have no reason to do these jobs or no education in these jobs. So there are certain parameters that have to be met before that statement can be true, regardless of even if you want to state that the company wants to maximize how much they make.
Okay, now my third argument. Based on your comments, I was able to write down some points that I'm going to contend later on. Now I'm going to put my third argument. Okay, now a study by the American Association of University Women, which is a feminist organization, they released a study that showed that the actual wage gap is not 23 cents gap, which is 7 cents on the dollar for every dollar a male makes, 77 cents for the women, but it was actually 6.6% gap when you actually factor in different choices men and women make, and keyword here, choice. Also, the U.S. Department of Labor in 2009 examined 50 peer-reviewed studies and concluded that the 23 cents gap may be almost entirely the result of individual choices by male and female workers. So it is not them, like, you know, I mean, you gave an example about, hey, you're gonna have more males doing this amount of work, and you're gonna pay females less because they're not doing the kind of work that the males are doing in the same particular job industry. And I mean, I beg to ask you, what kind of job industry are you talking about? Like, I mean, I mean, because if you're hiring, like, it only makes sense if you want to reduce costs. Every employer wants to reduce costs, that they would pay workers who are working in the same field. No matter, like, I work at Starbucks. Like, everybody gets paid $14 an hour, and yeah, there are days I do more tasks than women are doing, but that doesn't mean that women are not working harder, just as hard as I am. Yeah, I'm lifting up heavy stuff, but that doesn't mean women are not working hard. And so, just because I'm, like, taking garbages out and I'm cleaning toilets and stuff, that doesn't necessarily mean that just because the woman is not doing it often as I am, that they're not getting paid the same amount as me. Now, to go to a different study now, there was a Georgetown University study, and it talked about the top 5 high-paying majors, and here is how it looked like. Okay, so for petroleum engineering, 87% of males dominate that major. Pharmaceutical sciences were 48% males. Math and computer science, 67% male. Aerospace engineering, 88% male. Chemical engineering, 72% male. Women only outrepresented men in one of the top 5 high-paying majors by only a few percentage points, which was the pharmaceutical sciences. So also we see here that the high paying jobs, most women are not going into them, but rather men are, as opposed to the low paying majors. Counseling, psychology, 74% female. Early childhood education, 97% female. Theology and religious studies, 66% males. Human services and community organizations, 81% female. Social work, 88% female. Here is the women who lead in all but.
Okay. Like I said, I already knew all of this. You're not telling me anything I don't know, and I doubt you're telling anything anybody else don't know. However, those individual choices do not mean that there is not a gender pay gap. There is still a gender pay gap. It could be by choice. That's true. I 100% agree. And like I said, I'll go into my IQ statement real quick, since you seem to say that wasn't true. But scientifically speaking, yes, men have a higher IQ than women. A 1997 study in Denmark further concluded that men have about 15% more neurons, the functional unit of the brain, than women. In 1999, Professor Lin concluded that men on average had an IQ 3 to 4 points higher than women. In 2006, Canadian scientists conducted a study of 10,000 people based upon the analysis of SAT scores that correlate to IQ. They boosted the ego of men further by claiming that men had 4 to 5 points higher IQ than women. The average male advantage was found throughout the entire distribution of scores and every level of family income, for every level of fathers and mothers' education, and for every each one of the 7 ethnic groups. Professor of psychology at the University of Western Ontario, one of the writers of the study, J. Phillipton Rushton, had said. So, men have a higher IQ, which would lead them to do different tasks, which would lead them to have a higher wage, which would lead them to make more money, which would lead them to have a higher income, which leads to a gender pay gap. Now, you still haven't explained how it's a lie or how it's exaggerated. You said if you control for variables, then the pay gap shrinks, but you haven't made it completely non-existent, and you haven't explained how the aggregate statistic is still true. Or you haven't explained how the aggregate statistic is not true. You haven't explained how it's exaggerated. Now, I'm not sitting here saying or parroting any gender studies or any left-wing activists. What I'm saying is that it's a fact that there is a gender pay gap. And what I'm saying is that there is reasons for it, but it still exists. And it will continue to exist as long as we live in a capitalist society, which I hope we do. I don't want to leave the capitalist society. I'm perfectly fine with the section of life that we have right now. So I need you to explain how it's a lie or how it's exaggerated without delineating from the variables, to actually just explain to me why it doesn't exist if it does.
So you want me to explain without using the variables? The variables is the foundation I'm using to say that it's actually non-existent, because it's the variables that actually like justify the fact that I say that it's non-existent, because those factors must be taken into account. Women make choices. Women have family leaves. Women work less hours in particular fields. I mean, women women are not as willing as men to relocate into higher paying cities than males are. Be, for whatever reason have you, maybe they want to settle here, or you know but males are more willing to locate. Not just that. um you can have, say, an instance, two lawyers, women and men, they're both equally qualified, and one woman might be like, hey, look, I have a family, I can only do a regular schedule 9 to 5, versus the male. Now he's going to say, hey, look, I'm willing to be on call, I'm willing to stop what I'm doing at any moment's notice to get to the firm if you guys need me. Guess who's going to get paid more? The man who is willing to be on call, whether he's at home with his family or not. He's willing to be on call, and he's ready to go. He's ready to go to the firm. Versus the woman who says, "Hey, look, I have a family. I'm willing to work a 9 to 5. I'm not coming off the clock. I'm not coming if it's not between 9 and 5." She's gonna get paid less. I mean, and now if you see their paychecks, you might say, "Hey, look, this is." And you do the math, the yearly salary or their weekly salary. You're gonna say, "Hey, look, this is a wage gap." But you're not taking into effect why it occurred. That's the variable. The variable was the fact that one of that man just was willing to be on call, versus the woman. Now she was not willing to be on call. I just want to contend your I want to contend one of your points, and you talked about how you talked about women in the nursing industry. You said something along the lines of oh man, I'm looking for the comment you made. You said, oh my goodness, crap, give me a second. I'm trying to find where I took the note. uh you said something along the lines of crap. Why can I find this crap? You said, I believe you said, male like is male nurses make 18% more than female nurses. Okay, the reason why is because they no, you said you said female nurses make more than male nurses, and they work better than male nurses. And the thing is, male nurses, they make 18% more than female nurses. And the reason why is because they gravitate to higher paying specialties. They work longer hours, and they're willing to locate, as I mentioned before, to cities that pay more. Um, Even Professor Lyndon Aiken of University of Pennsylvania summarized this by saying, career choices and educational differences explain most, if not all, the gender.
Yeah, no, I didn't say that. What I said was that women are more likely to go in something like nursing, which would be considered a medium to high paying job. Um, and that is because women tend to be harder working, and women with the same IQ as men achieve more because they're possibly higher conscientious and better adapted to sustained periods of hard work, things of that nature. So they tend to gravitate towards that specifically because there's like a motherly bond there. That's why they go to it. Men do make more in nursing. I'm not going to refute that, and I don't think I should. And I think so far you've built my case for me better than I ever could. So you've constantly talked about all of these choices and all of these things get men to make more money. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Everything you said is true. Everything you said leads me to agree to this very point. There is a gender pay gap, specifically because men make more money than women. I don't care about what you continue to say. It's a fact. You have stated it over and over again and giving reasons as to why I'm correct. What I'm trying to tell you is that men make more money. There is a gender pay gap in aggregate. When you break it down into the different levels and those variables, they tend to make something very similar. But the problem comes down to the fact that men make those choices to make more money. And when men make more choices to make more money, they will make more money. Therefore, there is a wage gap in aggregate between the two. I'm not stating that two physicists that a man will always make more than a woman. What I'm saying is men make more money than women. Everything you've said thus far, all of your points have stated that men make more for specific reasons. I even explained some of those reasons. Higher levels of spatial ability. I tend to think men are more conscientious than women. That they're more disagreeable, which helps them get higher levels of payment. But all of that agrees with the fact that men make more money, that there's a gender pay gap. I'm still not understanding the refutation of why there's not a pay gap.
Okay, okay. There's not a pay gap in a sense that when variables are taken into account, that's when the wage gap narrows down to being non-existent. Um, in in another sense, um, if if uh if say a woman is working in um an anesthesiology and you have a male go into a low paying nursing field such as pediatrics, that there will be a wage gap where the women is actually making a lot more because she's in a higher specialty than the male. The male's in a low paying specialty. And now, if the woman is working more hours in her particular specialty and the male is working part time in his specialty, you can expect an even greater wage gap. So, I'm saying that we have to take into account specialties because if if women do the specialties that males are doing and they're working relentless hours like males are working and they're willing to be on call like most men are willing to be on call, the wage gap vanishes. It becomes non-existent. It's to the point where they're making exactly the same amount when those variables are taken into account. That's what I'm trying to communicate and saying that the gender wage gap is exaggerated and it's a lie because it is not taken into account that if women do these same things that males are doing, they could get paid the same amount. And the way feminists want to make it seem is as if women do the same things males are doing, if they're willing to be on call like most men are, if they're willing to relocate like most men are to cities that pay higher wages, or if they're willing to work overtime or work overnight or do those things to go above the limit like men are, that the gap still exists. And I'm basically challenging that and saying that it is a lie. If women do the same things, the gender wage gap is no longer there. There's economic opportunity for males and females in equally, and it's not marginalized just to being for males and not for females. And capitalist society does not encourage that. Capitalist society liberates women. It allows women to make decisions and live with the consequences of their decisions, whether if that's good or bad. And it applies to males and females. It is not respecter of any gender. And I pass it off to you.
Okay, so you said that if women did the exact same thing men did, they would make as much money. Sure, I disagree with you on that sociobiologically because I don't think that women can do the exact same thing men can. I explained that through the IQ, and I could also go through how men on the bell curve of the IQ also um, have have a bigger distribution, and that higher level of distribution goes into the highest levels of IQ levels, right? More so than it does for women. And two, when it comes to physical work, men would tend to do, men tend to be better at pure physical work. And three, the woman's want and need for family far outweigh their other socioeconomic and biological standards because that's kind of like what women want to do. So I don't think women can do everything men can do, and when I said that capitalism perpetuates this, I don't think that it's a rather controversial topic. I'm pretty sure Ben Hewitt won the tournament debate with that statement, and I think everyone tends to agree that capitalism perpetuates some gender differences. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Sure, capitalism has liberated women, of course, but it, it hasn't liberated women beyond men. No. It's not going to end the wage gap. No. So, and again, we're still back to the point that there's a wage gap. If women did all these things, will the wage gap end? Yeah. Are they going to? No. So if there's a wage gap, I still don't understand how there's not a wage gap. How is there not a wage gap? If they make less in aggregate than men, how is it not real? It's real. Now, what someone extrapolates that is far beyond me. I'm not a feminist. I'm actually pretty sure you can look at me and debate me's comment section about it. You can see I vehemently despise feminism. I guess you could say I'm slowly becoming a traditional conservative. And I absolutely, I diametrically oppose feminism from the outset. From first wave feminism to now, I oppose it in general. But what I'm saying is that there is a wage gap. You got to disprove the wage gap. In aggregate, disprove the wage gap. When we break it down to variable by variable, sure, women make just as much as men, but in aggregate, they do not. Therefore, it's real.
All right. Um, okay. I want to address your earlier point about the IQ. Now, when you gave your defense for IQ, you talked about like lifting heavy stuff, and so this contributes why like I would pay the male more because he lifts up heavy stuff, and you contribute that to IQ. I mean, I would think that you would contribute IQ to more into the teaching industries in regards to subject matters that women are and males are teaching, and I was going to assume that you was going to probably use the example of males going into more tougher subjects that than females are, where females go to the least difficult subjects. I thought that was the example we was going to use, not heavy lifting. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, physiology, we're different than females, and there are capabilities that we have as male that our bodies can take that females can't take. And you're a military guy. You obviously know that there was a study. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the study studied female mammals versus male mammals, and under pressure and under severe stress, the female mammals become muddled and confused, versus the male mammals, when they were under physical stress and fear, they became very aggressive and they were attacking each other. And so what this communicated was, in a situation where as a emergency, where like if there's a fire and you would want a male going in there versus a female because of the physique and how we're different physiology. And in the same way, in a military situation, you would prefer a male going into the front line rather than a female. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying females are different physiology. I'm saying in regards to when you say IQ, to like males have more IQ than females, I disagree with this proposition, because despite the fact the study you gave, I mean, I can just basically talk about case studies where now, if you have a female teaching um, trigonometry, and you have a male teaching the same subject, and this female is putting in the time and therefore is more knowledgeable in trigonometry than that male, in that particular area, she can be more skilled and have a higher IQ than that male does. And it doesn't have to be across the board where automatically, just because you guys have the same subjects, the male is expected to have a higher IQ than the female, because it's all going to be the variable is going to be how much work is this female putting in, how much work is the male putting in on their craft to be able to develop their IQ in a particular area. And that applies to all subject areas. And the actual quote you actually said women work harder than males in nursing, and women do. And women, I gave you statistics that prove, and I gave you case studies that said that women don't actually work harder than males in nursing. And I gave the variables in regards to males willing to work more overtime, they're willing to work off the clock, they want to do certain things that go above the limit than females are.
Okay, so I'm going to do this one more time. So, first off, IQ has nothing to do with lifting. I didn't make that reference. Secondly, I didn't say that women worked harder, therefore they make less money in nursing. What I said is women tend to the field due to them being harder working and a little bit more conscientious, and also that there's a socio-biological effect of motherly love and things of that nature. Third, there is no subject level IQ. IQ is a base reference for intelligence. It's not IQ based. It's not structure based. It's like you either have a high IQ or you don't. Right? There's no there's no difference, or there's no way to change your IQ. Your IQ is solid from 8 years old to really to your brain starts to deteriorate. But for the most part, through your adult life leading into your elderly years, your IQ is solid. It doesn't change. Right? There's no changing it. If anybody tells you they can change their IQ, they're lying to you and selling you wolf tickets. Don't listen to them. Next, the discussion about the math teachers, right, with the female working harder to teach trigonometry versus the male working hard teaching trigonometry. Again, that has nothing to do with IQ. Um, IQ is a metric for your base intelligence, uh, particularly in the form of pattern recognition. Um, so it's not really feasible to compare it to that. And then lastly, um, the statement that I'm making here is that there is a wage gap. You have not shown me how there's no wage gap. What you have told me is that there's choices that lead to a wage gap. What you have told me is that there's some errors that might cause a wage gap. What you have not done is shown me that there is no wage gap or that is exaggerated. So again, we both agree when you hold for variables in a specific field, they make the same. But the choices of women versus men and other factors that apply create the problem that there is a wage gap. I do not oppose the wage gap. I think the wage gap is good. So my last 30 seconds, I would just like to say thank you. After this, I have another debate. I didn't know that this was a 60-minute long debate. I thought it was a 30-minute debate. So I do have another debate after your next turn, and I would like to thank you. And we should do this again sometime. I really enjoyed these ones. They're really fun, especially because I could just like this type of subject is something that I go for quite often. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your time as well. And last statement is just capitalism does not perpetuate gender differences. That is already prevalent. It's pretty obvious that we are different in gender. And again, I said that I give the example. I said if you have the two cases of a male and a female working the same amount of hours, they're willing to come on the clock at a moment's notice. They're not taking that they're working full time. They're willing to relocate, and they're doing the same things almost identical. There is no wage gap. There is non-existent. It's not the way feminists communicated. They communicated as if regardless of how much things female do identical to males in regards to the same field, there will be a gender gap, and that is not true. That's completely false. And because you say you got to go to the next debate, I'm gonna let you go. Again, thank you for your time, man. Appreciate it. And